he's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood. And, and I think also, he famously, there's some videos of him in blackface, and those came out, and he had apologized for them, and I think he took that hit and, really doubled down the other direction.
Jimmy Kimmel just got hit with a staggering $500 million lawsuit, and the takedown is brutal. Joe Rogan torches him like a comic bombing on stage, while Megyn Kelly rips through his Hollywood ego without mercy. What was once late-night charm has turned into a courtroom circus, and a public roasting rolled into one. Kimmel isn't just stumbling, he's crashing in spectacular fashion.
I mean, I struggle to even mention that guy's name. He's such an absolute, I can't stand him. But anyway, it's just my thought bubble out loud. We took a look at some of their reactions to the news of Trump's win. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO.
You know how much it costs to produce Jimmy Kimmel's show? I guarantee you it's tens and tens of millions. It could be as much as 100 million. I have no idea. You know how much Tucker's video cost? Nothing. You know how much Jimmy Kimmel, how many people he gets tuning in on an average night? Just last week, his average was, in the overall, meaning all viewers, 1.5 million. In the key demo, 236,000. Tucker would have been embarrassed to pull that on any night he was on the Fox News channel.
Joe Rogan couldn't believe what he was seeing. Not a warning, not a lawyer's empty threat. A $500 million haymaker that landed with thunder. Rogan was already laughing before he even got through the headline.
There's not a chance in hell that this is funny or gonna work. And when you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes with no audience, Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Fallon. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. So a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. They stand there, and there's applause signs, and then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to applaud. They're like, okay, explaining to the people, okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right now.
The moment news broke, the comedy world tilted on its axis. This wasn't a cease and desist letter or some quiet legal jab. It was a thunderous strike that left even Joe Rogan doubled over in disbelief. What followed was a spectacle. Rogan laughed like he'd stumbled into the strangest fight night in history, while Megyn Kelly carved through Kimmel's arrogance with surgical precision. Suddenly, the late-night host wasn't the one delivering punchlines. He was the punchline. Kimmel's carefully polished persona cracked wide open as his old blackface sketches and smug monologues resurfaced under the harshest spotlight imaginable. The man who made a career mocking others now found himself being mocked on the biggest stage yet. The lawsuit wasn't just paperwork, it was a freight train, and Kimmel was the house cat foolish enough to stand in its path. This wasn't late-night television anymore. This was a demolition. Half courtroom drama, half public roast, and Jimmy Kimmel was front and center in his own unraveling.
Horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities and it wasn't a big deal. Absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr. Kimmel, whose blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Joe Rogan ripped into the audacity of Jimmy Kimmel's smug act, comparing his political jokes to a chihuahua barking orders at a SWAT team. Loud, persistent, but impossible to take seriously. And now that yapping had a $500 million price tag attached to it. From there, Rogan dismantled Kimmel's entire brand of comedy, calling it the kind of soft, forgettable material that keeps interns chuckling just enough to stay employed. Not bold, not sharp, just warm milk masquerading as satire. He pointed out the brutal reality. Tucker Carlson's basement videos rack up over 20 million views, while Kimmel struggles to scrape together 1.5 million on a network that beams into every home for free. Rogan laughed hardest at the delusion that Kimmel still thought he was the cool kid in the cafeteria. In Rogan's words, he's nothing more than a network puppet clapping back at power like a substitute teacher with a whistle. Taking shots at Trump every night, Rogan said, was like tossing pebbles at a Freightliner and bragging about the dent. But now the train is charging back with a $500 million lawsuit. The mental image had Rogan howling, Kimmel frantically calling lawyers while scrubbing old blackface clips off YouTube, like a panicked kid erasing chalkboard insults before the principal storms in. Rogan said this wasn't just about money, it was psychological warfare. The knockout came when Rogan nailed the irony. The man who built his career mocking celebrities was now crying foul because one of them wasn't laughing back. It's the school bully whining after the quiet kid finally punched him in the face, Rogan said. While Rogan laughed, Megyn Kelly sharpened her scalpel. Where Joe brought punchlines, she brought cold precision. To her, this wasn't chaos. It was inevitability. The court jester had pushed too far, and the king came down swinging with a golden gavel. Kelly tore into Kimmel's fake sense of relevance, mocking his belief that smirking at Trump in front of a clapping studio audience made him a resistance hero. In truth, she said, he was just reading someone else's safe, stale jokes while his audience risked dozing off before the second punchline. Together, Rogan and Kelly didn't just roast Jimmy Kimmel, they stripped him down to what he really was. A fading late-night host who mistook applause for power, Megyn Kelly sliced Jimmy Kimmel apart with surgeon-like precision. She reminded viewers that once upon a time, back in his man show days, Kimmel might have been edgy, but that version is long gone. What's left, she said, is a corporate-approved shell of a comic, polished, predictable, and forever outraged in a way that reeks of desperation. He's like the high school rebel who grew up to be the hall monitor, Kelly smirked. And the cruelest irony? He still thinks he's untouchable. She didn't stop there. Kelly tossing out cheap shots in front of a clapping studio audience, she said, wasn't bravery. It was zero-risk smugness disguised as satire. And now, karma had finally arrived in the form of a $500 million lawsuit. This isn't free speech, she said flatly. It's cheap speech. And when cheap shots cost real money, you don't get to cry victim. Kelly painted the lawsuit like a scene from a thriller. Kimmel under harsh lights, sweating bullets, staring down a stack of legal papers that didn't care about his applause lines or Emmy trophies. This isn't a sketch, she said. This is $500 million real. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan couldn't stop laughing. To him, the image of Kimmel scrambling to erase his old blackface skits while calling lawyers was pure comedy. He called the lawsuit psychological warfare, a move designed not just to win in court, but to own Kimmel's headspace, make him flinch at every Trump joke, lose sleep over every monologue. Then came Rogan's knockout. Kimmel poked the bear, he said, but this bear owns skyscrapers, commands armies of lawyers, and doesn't do warning shots. And Jimmy's left holding a mic, out of punchlines, surrounded by disclaimers. Kelly returned to finish the autopsy. She mocked Kimmel's falling ratings, comparing his 1.5 million viewers on a free national network to Carlson, pulling in 20 million from a cabin in Maine. She said late-night comedy had become a dying business model, bloated hosts raking in millions while audiences vanished. And now, by the end, both Rogan and Kelly were aligned in rare agreement. Kimmel wasn't the clever jester lobbing jokes from the castle walls anymore. He had wandered into the arena, and the lion finally roared. That roar, a $500 million lawsuit. And according to both of them, it was just the warm-up.